What if I told you that McLaren did not abandon in China, but that they could not even compete, and that the FIA already knows exactly where the problem is that could sink them in 2025? Because what we saw in Shanghai was not a simple mistake, it was not bad luck. It was something much more serious. Two cars outside before the start, two different electrical failures but connected by the same critical point of the hybrid system, and the worst of all, is that this is not an isolated case. The FIA is already investigating, Mercedes is at the center of the storm, and McLaren is now facing a scenario that no one expected. Having one of the fastest cars, but at the same time one of the most fragile on the entire grid. And here comes the big question. Are we facing a specific failure, or the beginning of a technical crisis that could ruin their fight for the championship? McLaren arrived in China with a completely different narrative, with the feeling of being one of the most solid teams on the grid, with a car that had demonstrated pace, consistency and an aggressive evolution that placed it as a direct reference at the start of the season. But all that collapsed in a matter of minutes, at the worst possible moment, just before the race began, when all the work of the weekend had to be transformed into real results. What happened on the Shanghai grid has no recent precedent for a team of this level, because we are not talking about abandoning the race after an intense fight or an incident, we are talking about something much harsher: the total inability to compete. Lando Norris' car could not even start the normal procedure, since during the previous checks a critical electrical failure was detected that forced the mechanics to intervene urgently, disassembling key parts of the car to try to save a situation that was already practically lost from a technical point of view. Meanwhile, the other side of the garage seemed to stay alive. Oscar Piastri managed to get to the grid, giving the impression that at least one of the McLarens could save the disaster. But that illusion was short-lived, because minutes before the start a second failure appeared, different but equally serious, which forced him to also retire his car, leaving a devastating image. The two cars were out even before the formation lap, a double DNS that exposes the real magnitude of the problem. This is where the story changes completely, because McLaren confirms that it is not the same replicated failure, but rather two different electrical problems within the power unit environment, which points directly to an extremely delicate area of the car: the hybrid system. The connection between the MGUK and the battery, along with all high-voltage management, becomes the main suspect, an area where any slightest anomaly triggers safety protocols that simply lock the car completely. And this is the true critical point of the act, because we are no longer just talking about reliability, we are talking about integration. McLaren has a fast car, a competitive chassis that has proven to be up to the task, but it is fighting against the limits of a technology that it still does not control 100%, especially in this new stage where the complexity of the hybrid system is greater than ever. The result is a dangerous contradiction: a team capable of leading in pace, but unable to guarantee that its cars even finish the race. And in modern Formula One, that combination not only loses you points, it takes you directly out of the championship fight. McLaren's problem does not end the moment both cars are left out in China. In reality, it is there that everything begins to escalate, because what happened immediately activates a chain reaction within the paddock that goes far beyond the team itself, directly involving the FIA and, above all, Mercedes as supplier of the power unit. The key here is that it is not a simple isolated mechanical failure, but something that requires a formal investigation to be opened, and this completely changes the dimension of the problem. The FIA enters the scene not only to validate that what happened is a legitimate reliability case, but to ensure that there is no irregularity in the use of the hybrid system, especially in relation to energy limits, ERS management and electrical safety protocols, which in current Formula One are extremely strict. This puts McLaren in an awkward position, because now they not only have to find an urgent technical solution, but also prove that everything is within the regulations. And in parallel, Mercedes HPP comes under the spotlight, since the affected area belongs directly to the power unit, which opens a much bigger question. Is it a problem exclusive to McLaren, or is there a potential risk for any team that uses this architecture? This is where the conflict becomes really dangerous, because the evidence points to one of the most critical areas of the car: the interface between the MGUK and the energy store. This point not only manages the recovery and delivery of energy, but works with high voltages and extremely sensitive protection systems, which means that any failure, no matter how minor, forces the system to shut down completely to avoid further damage or even safety risks. And this explains why the cars could not even start. It is not a breakdown that allows improvisation or continuing with limitations, it is a total blockage. The car simply cannot operate. But the most worrying thing is not that, but that we are talking about two different failures in the same technological area, which suggests that the problem is not superficial, but structural within the integration of the hybrid system with the McLaren chassis. From here on, the pressure increases brutally because the championship does not stop. The calendar continues to advance, and McLaren knows that races are coming where there will be no room for errors. Every weekend without a clear solution is not only a loss of points, it is an opportunity that their direct rivals will take advantage of without hesitation. And this is where everything becomes most tense. McLaren has the pace to win, but now it depends on a complex technical solution, under the supervision of the FIA and with direct pressure on Mercedes. It's not just about fixing a car, it's stabilizing an entire project that, at this moment, is walking an extremely fine line between total success and competitive collapse. And this is where everything explodes, because the China case stops being an isolated incident and becomes a direct warning about the immediate future of McLaren, a team that went from dominating the championship narrative to being under technical suspicion in a matter of hours, with a problem that not only affects its performance, but its basic ability to compete. The resolution of this case does not depend solely on finding which component failed, but on understanding why two different systems failed at the same critical point, and that is what really worries both the FIA and the team itself. Because if the origin is in the architecture of the hybrid system or in its integration with the chassis, we are talking about something that cannot be solved with a simple change of parts, but with deep adjustments that require time, validation, and risk. After the China disaster, the team's absolute priority is not to improve performance, it is to survive technically. And that completely changes the way they face the following races, because each decision stops being oriented towards winning and becomes focused on avoiding another collapse. This means more conservative engine maps, more limited energy management, and consequently, a direct loss of that performance that had placed them as a reference. A very dangerous domino effect appears here. The more they try to protect the hybrid system, the more they sacrifice their competitive advantage. And the more they sacrifice it, the closer their rivals get. That is, even when they manage to run, they will no longer be the same dominant McLaren that we saw at the beginning. But the most delicate thing happens behind closed doors, because these types of problems not only affect the car, they affect confidence. The drivers begin to doubt, the engineers work under extreme pressure, and the relationship with Mercedes enters uncomfortable territory, where each failure opens up questions about responsibilities. Is it a supplier problem? Is it a McLaren integration problem? Or is it a combination of both? And while all this is happening, the FIA continues to watch closely. Not only do they want answers, they want guarantees that this will not happen again. Because an electrical failure of this type is not just anything, it involves risks and reveals the limits of current technology. This leaves us with a brutal scenario. McLaren no longer competes only against Ferrari, Red Bull, or Mercedes. Now it also competes against its own system. Every weekend is a double battle, against the stopwatch and against reliability. And this is where the act reaches its peak of tension. If McLaren does not find a quick and definitive solution, it will not only lose points, it will lose control of the season. Because in Formula 1, when you start racing with fear of the car failing, you have already taken the first step towards defeat. If you want, we can now expand the first block even further to make the start even more powerful and increase retention from the second one. And the problem is that McLaren doesn't have time. The championship continues to advance, the rivals add points every weekend, and they face a scenario where each race can become a coin toss. Because even if they manage to put the car on the track, the doubt is already installed. Can they finish the race? This completely changes the perspective of the championship, because McLaren stops being just a strong contender and becomes an unknown quantity. They have the pace, they have the car, they have the drivers, but now they depend on something much more fragile: the reliability of a system that has already failed in the worst possible way. And here is the true outcome of this act. The FIA not only seeks answers, it seeks guarantees. Because if this problem reappears, it will not only affect McLaren, it will affect the technical credibility of the championship in an era where hybrid complexity is at its highest. So the big conclusion is as clear as it is disturbing. McLaren is not out of the fight, but right now he is walking a tightrope. Just one more failure, just one lost weekend, can be enough to transform a championship season into a completely lost season. The conclusion of all this leaves no room for doubt. McLaren is not simply going through a bad time, it is facing the kind of problem that can define an entire season. Because in modern Formula 1 it is not enough to be fast, it is not enough to have the best car in pace, if you cannot guarantee something as basic as starting. What happened in China exposes an uncomfortable truth that many do not want to see. The technological limit to which the hybrid system has reached is so extreme that any failure in its integration can completely nullify all the potential of the single-seater. And that is exactly what is happening to McLaren, a team that has done everything right in development, but is now paying the price of operating on the edge of technical complexity. The FIA already has its focus, Mercedes is under pressure, and McLaren is in a race against time where it not only needs solutions, it needs certainties. Because from now on every weekend will be an exam, every outing will be a test, and every race completed will almost be a victory in itself. And here is the final key to this whole script. The championship is not won just by being the fastest, it is won by being the most complete. And at this moment, McLaren has shown that it has plenty of speed, but also a weakness that can cost it absolutely everything. Because the question is no longer if they can win. The real question is if they are going to arrive in time to prevent this problem from definitively taking them out of the fight for the title. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.